We're definitely going to get fired up here in the spoiler room. It's going to get really hot. We normally don't do news topics anymore, but tonight we've got a hot topic that just came up, and man, Scott Davis, thank you for fanning the fire. How are you doing, sir?
I'm just what? I'm just over here, with my leaf blower.
We also have Paul in the room tonight. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm stoked.
You're stoked. Awesome. And Mr. Gonzorific himself is joining us once again. Hello, the lovely Andrew Shearer.
Hey, man, I am lovely. I love that you do that, dude. Thank you.
You are a lovely gentleman, to be sure.
All I want to be, Jack.
And then we got BFD, Mr. Glenn Bittner. Hello, sir.
Is that my cue to take out my phone?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
And then we have the diva of the spoiler room, Dawn. How are you?
That would have been great if I wouldn't have just nosed my beer.
And not least, but definitely the last guy in the spoiler room tonight, Cole Meredith. How are you doing, sir?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Always. And the hot topic, folks, we had just before I hit go live is Mr. Scott Davis helped stoke the fire and tell some of the fine folk in the spoiler room who didn't know that, yes, Terminator Genisys film has a video game that you can play during the movie. Yes, certain films at IMAX, right now it's only the AMC theaters, according to the news article, have a specific game you can play on your cell phone. And at one point during the movie, they will cue it, and you can take out your cell phone and play in the video game while the battle's going on screen. Dawn! Let's just give some quick thoughts. Have we finally reached the apex of, oh my God, what are they doing?
Why? I mean, I know they've done the interactive thing before, like for DVDs and that, but oh, for the love of all things. Nothing why?
Like, hey, it's the battle scene. Whip it out and not look at the screen that cost millions upon millions of dollars to do the special effects. No, play it on your 8-bit app.
Yeah, it annoy the people around you who just want to enjoy the movie for.
It's going to force everybody to pull the phone out and play, because otherwise you're going to get annoyed.
Well, and not just that. Really, how do we enforce the whole let's not take our phone out and record the movie?
Well, as long as you don't wear a hoodie, you're okay, because
that's true. That's right.
That ad in front of
it's always the hoodie.
The ad in the film, everybody else, the obnoxious guy, everybody's got their jackets off, but the guy who's recording the film with his G4, he's wearing the hoodie. So as long as there's no one with hoodies, no one's recording. That's the rule.
Gotta be the truth.
It's gotta be the truth.
I saw it on a movie.
I did too. It had to be true. I read it on the internet. Glenn, what about you, sir? Whipping it out during the battle on Terminator Genisys.
Bad choice of words, man.
Oh, I chose that on purpose.
Are we talking about Genesis or Rocky Horror?
Pulling your phone out to be interactive, quote unquote, during a film. Your thoughts?
There is no fucking reason to be interactive during a film.
Thank you.
If you want to have interactive theater, do theater and have interactive theater. And even then, don't have it interact with a phone.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'd like to add an addendum to that statement and say no. Paul, what about you, sir? You're watching your film, and suddenly half the audience pulls out their cell phones and decides, hey, I'm going to battle Terminators while the battles of Terminators is going
I'm okay
on.
with that because I'm not in New York, I'm not in Los Angeles, I'm not in San Francisco, I'm not in Boston. Those are the 4 places that are going to do it, and I don't care. But the winner does get a poster. Come on. The winning team gets a poster. Exactly. I'm hyping it up. I'm making it real.
You're making it something. You can put roses on a pile of dog shit. It's still dog shit, man.
But it's dog shit with roses.
But they actually
I like that, Paul.
You got me there, Paul. You definitely got me.
You might win a poster too. So.
Andrew, what about you, sir? This encouragement of doing this basically during your theater experience.
I hope that by the time, this is kind of, you kind of could see this coming. I mean, they already have those screenings where people use their iPads. The kids movie, what kids movie?
That was Frozen,
or a re-release of Little Mermaid or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, you're right. It was the re-release. It was of Little Mermaid. They allowed everybody to bring their iPads to be interactive.
What I'm hoping that by the time it happens, I'm fucking dead, is when you go into the screens and they've all been converted to vertical screens.
Oh.
I'm gonna be like, if I'm not dead by the time that happens, when we've just stopped holding the camera the normal way, I will walk out into traffic and into the first bus I see, and that'll be the end of Andrew, because that's the end of cinema as far as I'm concerned.
The true death of cinema when it is
vertical cinema, yes.
When it is
my words when that shit happens. No, dude. Honestly, if that happened in where I live, if there's going to be a guy in the theater that doesn't know that that's going to be a thing, and he'll just start beating the fuck out of everyone who has their. And that will be the end of that guy.
They don't know what's going to happen. All of a sudden, people all whip out their phones. He's like, ah! It goes just.
No, because man, when people take out their phone, somebody goes, "Hey, put the motherfucking phone away."
Mm-hmm.
Put the motherfucking phone away, and they'll kick.
This would be finally a reason to have all those riots at the movie theater that they used to have. You know.
No, trust me, man. We can do a whole podcast of shit that I've seen people do to other people in the theaters, violent, like not killing them stuff, but just like if someone as the price of admission increases, the sense of don't fuck with what I paid for increases in the theaters.
Yes.
I hope that's true, though. Yeah, I hope that's true.
You are not talking. You are not doing anything. Because there's somebody in there. It's like, as much as this goddamn thing, and I had to be on time, and I had to get my kids, and we almost missed it. You know whatever. They're like, you know what I mean? They are. You don't. You don't. They'll be telling a motherfucker and going out into, actually they don't want to miss a second of the thing. They're not going to go tell the manager. They will come down there to you and look dead at you. Yeah. I seen it. My wife used to throw shit at people who would.
Yeah.
She had a bag of jelly beans in her purse that she would eat during the movie, and if you had your shit out, ping, she's got good aim too.
And Cole, what about you, sir? This notion of making your theater experience interactive with your phone while the movie's going on.
I don't know. I mean, it was bound to happen at some point, and I don't know. It doesn't freak me out too much because it was bound to happen, and it'll come and probably go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bad idea, but I don't think it's a huge threat to anything other than maybe Terminator 5. I really, I don't see this becoming a trend. Although, as a film goer, I'm somewhat sheltered. I've seen a huge portion of the country, but I've only watched movies in Wisconsin. And overall, I think I've had one problem with cell phones in the theater in 36 years of going to the movies. So, I'm not the best person to ask. I'm pretty optimistic about it. I mean, somebody was going to try it. This movie has been grabbing at straws. From a marketing standpoint, at least, from the beginning. I think everybody here knows that.
Oh, but
I don't think it's anything to freak out about.
But the early reviews are saying that it's going to be as good as Terminator 2, and it's going to be so good we need to distract you from the film for about 15 minutes on your phone. That's how good this film is. No, don't pay attention to what's going on screen and that we made some of the Terminators Transformers. No, go look at your app and shoot things.
And they gotta say,
if it was good enough, man, dude, they wouldn't need that shit. Remember that.
Yeah. Cool. You said how you don't see it becoming a trend. I said the same thing when Michael Bay made his first film. Look where we are now.
Well, I'm not equipped to comment on. I try not to get too freaked out about it, because somebody was gonna try it, and this movie's marketing has sucked from the beginning. So
it's been weak. It's been a hard sell to begin.
But now they're basically telling people, encouraging them not to watch it. The next thing you know, it'll be just like, the movie's not actually going to be on the screen. You're going to need to download this app and just come to the theater and enjoy your phone.
Yeah.
After you pay for the ticket, after you pay for the concessions, everything.
And while
At least Bart the movie from Idiocracy was still on the screen.
Scott, you commented that some producers going, this is brilliant. They don't have to pay attention to how good the film is because they'll be too busy playing on their phones. Why didn't we think of this sooner?
They, and you just know that it is some asshole in these. They always have these little departments that are made up of people to spot trends. And that'll have their pulse on the young people. And I always think of like that old cartoon Clone High had an episode. If anybody ever got to see that old show,
Clone High was awesome, man.
They had a great episode about where they had these corporate execs that were trying to market to extreme people, and it was basically just like these three people in suits, but they rode Razor scooters and had sunglasses. Hey, kids, and I just picture that like somebody like in a meeting quote saying synergy and extreme a lot, and and just doing this. Now I do know they have had some experimentation with this, not the video game part, but they've actually had experimentation with people chatting during the movie on their cell phones and the chats appearing on screen. That is in Japan, not here.
Yep.
I don't know how it has gone over.
In porns? Or
No, not like, look at her take that thing.
That would be hilarious.
That really ain't got no hair.
Actually, you know what? You couldn't do that here, could you? Because there'd be like too many like 13-year-old misogynists like commenting about Sarah Connor.
Well, but, you're gonna need one of your hands for so.
But
your texting hand, it's gonna be a conflict.
It is fucking stupid though, because it's like God forbid you pay the full ticket price, you go see a movie, and we're done. Okay, I love that. That's awesome.
What did I miss?
God forbid, you pay the full ticket price, concessions and everything, and then actually watch the movie for 2 hours. I mean, you don't need. Isn't that entertainment enough? I mean, isn't that what you paid for? Isn't that what you did? Isn't that the whole purpose of it? Yeah. I'm not saying that there is no future in interactive films, but design that from the start. Yeah. Don't have the thing about like now take your attention away from this and do that. Otherwise, you know what? You don't have a new Terminator film. You don't have a big tentpole film. You know what you've got? Oogie Loves. Anybody fucking remember the Oogie Loves?
Like the worst reviewed movie of all time, or the shortest theatrical of all time, or something like that.
Yeah, that's what you got. Congratulations, movie people.
Yeah, you had to take a swig of it was like a shot glass full of asshole before you saw that movie. Nobody wanted to. They're like, a glass of asshole? What is it?
Wow.
Closed the next day. It's amazing how that didn't work, right?
Need a breath mint after that glass of asshole.
The Rock's asshole or just a regular asshole?
But we might be looking at this all wrong. It might be that you go to the movie and then before the movie starts, you might get you do the video game to get you kind of all excited about it, and it's interactive in that aspect. You see it on the screen, and it's interactive on the screen with your phones, interacting with it, and then you get to watch the movie. If that's the case, then I think it would be awesome.
I'll tell you what's going to happen, dude. You're going to stop going to movies, and movies are going to go to you. The motherfucker will just, show up at your house. Watch the Terminator. Won't be shit you can do. It'll punch you right in the face.
Well, he already does have an Austrian accent, so.
Terminator 6 drones that come out and drop things off to your house, it's going to happen.
Yeah, live with me if you want to come.
They're gonna actually It's gonna be just like drone drop at your house now.
Wow, 15 minutes in, and the bleep version of this is already going to have Marcus. Think our Mad Max.
Oh, I forgot about that. I shouldn't have said asshole so much.
Yeah, you really should say asshole because that might not go over well. No, I kid. You guys say whatever you want. I just thought it was hilarious. But yeah, I saw that, and
Fuck.
There you go.
thank you, Glenn.
That's how I actually feel about the whole cell phone thing.
If you really want to do an interactive experience, they've got the technology now. Fine, you want to do an interactive experience. You've got the movie playing, and you've got the good guy, and he's got the gun on the bad guy, and you take 30 seconds. Everybody go up to the movie app. Do you want him to kill him or not kill him?
That would be awesome.
And if he
I would
doesn't
say,
kill
though,
him,
I mean, really, like, if you want an interactive experience, you can do it cheaply and just go fuck yourself.
Yeah, they've done these things already.
but they've tried that, yeah.
Didn't they just have like a what was that thing in the '90s with Adam West? Wouldn't they have like a Race for Your Life or something? It was something race with Adam West, and I remember people had like
Race War. No, that wasn't it.
I'm like, hey, I just figured out what happened. We failed.
That's something completely different.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get right into our discussion. I had to talk about that now that we're all nice and warmed up and toasty. We are going to talk about two films that are celebrating their 25th anniversary. One we talked about briefly on our Google Hangout only episode, Would You Like to Know More? But we didn't talk about it too much, so we're kind of revisiting it. We have some new people to talk about this film, and it's going to be Total Recall. And then we're also going to talk about Darkman. And I think we're going to talk about Darkman first.
Yay!
Darkman, yes. Directed and written, at least the story was written by one Mr. Sam Raimi. Yes, the man who went on to do major big-budgeted superhero films. And here we basically have a brilliant scientist, played by Liam Neeson, who is left for dead, and he returns to exact revenge on people who burned him alive. And I mean burned him alive. Dude gets toe up. And this scientist, he's got some superpowers thanks to not being able to feel pain. And it's Liam Neeson, so he's kicking ass. A young Liam Neeson, but nonetheless. And this, I believe, was Sam Raimi's first big-budget feature film. The previous film I think he did was only in the 100,000s, and here we've got 16 million was the budget for this one. Let's start with Glenn. Your thoughts with Darkman when you first saw it?
I loved it when I first saw it.
Mm-hmm.
I was already a Sam Raimi fan before this.
Sure.
So seeing him getting a shot for the big screen, plus, the cast, I didn't know. I had known that Bruce Campbell had been who Raimi wanted for the lead role, but the studios would not go for that.
Right.
But Frances McDormand I liked a lot already. Mm-hmm. The fact that she was in that kind of also drew me in. So I'm like, okay, cool. It's Sam Raimi. I will definitely see this. And it was a hoot.
It definitely is a lot of fun, and what I love about it is that this film has Raimi written all over it. Andrew, what about you? Your thoughts, or initial thoughts after you saw Darkman?
Oh man, well I was stoked as hell. I was 13 years old, and I was a big Evil Dead 2 fan, and I was just the ad campaign was Who is Darkman, and this is like the year after Batman, so they're trying to make like an original superhero. I had like the Marvel adaptation, I had the novelization. I was ready, I'm so ready, man. Because it's a children's movie, really, and I ate it up. And I happen to have, if you guys will indulge me, I happen to have my journal from when I was 13, when I first started writing about movies in summer of 1990, and I got young Andrew's thoughts on brief thoughts on Darkman, if you guys
Ooh,
don't mind.
yes. Let's. Doodle.
Thanks, Tommy. That's a good early '90s reference you just made.
Thank you.
Okay, it's September 2nd, 1990. I spent an hour or two at Walmart waiting for my dad to get some pants. Then we went to see what I considered to be the best summer movie of all time, Darkman. It was great, and get this, my mom even liked it. There you go.
Wow, wow, nice.
Apparently my mom liked it. She did not like Total Recall, which we'll talk about later. But no, Sam Raimi, he's like, someday he's gonna really be. I mean, he makes kids movies. Army of Darkness is a children's movie. Darkman's a children's movie. They happen to be rated R. I don't know who did that, but it was a mistake because I saw it 5 times in the theater, dude. 5 times.
Darkman?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Darkman.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I saw it twice in the theater. And Paul, what about you, sir? Your initial feelings with Darkman?
I did not watch it in the theater when it first came out. I actually watched it first on video cassette. But it does have a lot of the Sam Raimi style and a lot of his isms.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked the characters back then. And now, rewatching it 25 years, well, probably less than 25 years, but truly, I appreciate the greatness of this movie more now as an adult because there's so many little nuances that I missed when I was younger that I appreciate now. And also, watching a lot more movies since then has really helped me appreciate this movie so much more.
Definitely. And Cole, what about you, sir? How are your thoughts on Darkman?
Well, when I first saw it, I saw it about a year after I'd first seen Bruce Campbell speak at a Fangoria Weekend of Horrors, and it was shortly before Army of Darkness came out, or maybe a year or two before Army of Darkness came out, and apparently at the time Army of Darkness was going to be called Dead Meat. I'm just quoting Bruce Campbell here, and they were aiming for a PG rating, neither of which happened, but he didn't want to talk about Army of Darkness too much. He seemed agitated to talk about it. But somebody brought up Darkman, and he talked about Darkman for probably 15 minutes, at least 10 minutes. But he talked about, and this is before I'd seen it, he talked about all the stuff that had been cut out, and about how, test audiences can ruin a movie, and how a lot of the wilder sequences apparently involving the villains. I haven't researched this online. I'm just going by what he said over 20 years ago. A lot of the wilder stuff involving the villains was lopped out by the studio and test audiences. So by the time I watched it on VHS, I kind of had a bitter taste in my mouth. And in hindsight, looking back on it, what he wasn't ranting about was Darkman. He was ranting about what was happening with Army of Darkness, which is they'd eventually cut like 15 minutes out of the movie and make him shoot a new ending. So, and I've talked with Bruce a few times since. I'm not just throwing names around. My stepmom used to work for Fox, so when he was promoting Briscoe County Jr., he'd swing through and I'd talk with him. But he had a lot to say about Darkman at the time, and I was never able to watch it just because I knew all that stuff had been taken out. But having watched it literally right before I came on tonight, fuck, man, this is an amazing. I mean, I'd never seen an A1 in widescreen, B2 with my surround system, and C3 since I'd started making movies. I think I'm blown away. I'll just leave it at that for now. But this one's amazing. Amazing.
Yes. And Dawn, how about you? Darkman?
I too, I did not see it in the theater. I saw it on video later on. I liked it. I've seen it a few times, but I guess it did not leave as big an impression on me. Even though I did enjoy it, it just it wasn't one of those movies that really impacted me all that much.
Sure. Well, and that's why I love this room so much. Everybody has varying opinions, but I can definitely see that with it. Even if you are a Raimi fan,
Which I am.
Which you are definitely. So, and Scott, what about you, sir? Darkman.
My story is very similar to Andrew's.
Mhm.
I had just when I was reading the Premiere magazine, about the movies that were going to come out in the summer, and this is one of their little like things where they just barely gave a paragraph to talk that and there's this movie called Darkman, and it was but I was like immediately like boom because I saw Sam Raimi's name.
Mhm.
And I had just discovered the first two Evil Dead films at that point. And I was like, oh my god, I gotta see this movie. And so I was like, every single thing, I was looking for any kind of clues I could. The poster came out, the teaser poster that just said, who is Darkman? And the A in Darkman, the second A or whatever, first A, one of them,
was him.
Was the trench coated figure. And I was like, oh my god, who is Darkman? Holy shit, I need to see this. And and then I'm like, kept getting trailer after trailer after trailer after trailer, and I'm like, when's this movie coming out? It came out like the last weekend of summer, I believe. And I was like, oh my god, when's it coming out? And finally the trailer came out. I'm like, oh my god! It was like on the beginning of like I can't even remember the movie. It was on the beginning of one of the MCA Universal movies. But I was like played that constantly. I was bringing in all my friends. I was bringing in my parents. Parents, look at that! Like, oh my god, is that what you're looking at? Do you worship the devil? Like, no, look! it's like I was just so into it. And then I like begged. I mean, they had to listen to me all summer long because unlike some of your other cool neighborhoods, it was so freaking hard to get into an R-rated movie if you did not have an older person with you, and none of my parents or anything were going to see Darkman with me. And my brother was not that cool. So I'm like, I gotta sneak it. I gotta somehow find somebody at the theater who's going to let me and my friend see this movie, even though we are 14 years old or whatever we were. And so finally it comes out. I'm right there. I'm with my friend. I'm like, okay, we're gonna see this movie. Okay, remember, you gotta shut up in the movie theater, otherwise some usher's gonna come in and say, "Hey, you're kids," and throw us out. And it was like we saw this movie. I was going nuts. I loved this movie so much. It was my favorite movie this summer. I think it was my favorite movie of the year at that point. Every single like paper I did in school. For like the first 3 or 4 months, I was trying in the middle when I would finish the thing. If I finished it ahead of time, and you're supposed to sit there with your paper on your desk, I was trying to like draw the little trench coat figure in the corner of the paper, like see if I could get all the lines and contours right. I mean, I was nuts for Darkman, and I still am. I love this movie.
And that's awesome. And for me, Darkman struck a chord because I was still coming off the high of Batman. Big Burton fan. Here we had Batman. I'm just a huge fan of Batman. I went gonzo for Batman. I mean, and so here we are a year later with a Darkman, and it's an R-rated superhero film. It's like, oh my God! Now we did just have Batman. Now we've got this, and it's done by Sam Raimi, who again I too knew him from the Evil Dead series from watching those horror films, and so I was like, oh, I'm behind this. And then for me, Danny Elfman doing the music, okay, I'm there because I'm just a huge Danny Elfman fan. And especially after the Batman soundtrack came out, it was like I looked for everything of his.
Yeah.
Before that, I didn't really pay too close attention outside of if it was a Williams or a Horner, rest in peace. If it wasn't one of the bigger names, I didn't quite notice it. But after Batman, I recognized Danny Elfman, and all of a sudden it was like I found out he had done music for some of my other favorite films, like Beetlejuice, and I'm like, oh my God, But this one, yeah, I saw it. I'm like, oh, it's a mature superhero film, and I really enjoyed it too. I thought it was weird and different, but at the same time, I was really digging it. Just for the uniqueness at the time that it was, because it is a superhero film. And I read something interesting that apparently this got spawned because Raimi had the idea, but I guess he tried initially to get into Batman. Raimi tried to do Batman, and he couldn't get attached to the project, so he had Darkman. He had this story about Darkman that he decided to make, and they let him and gave him lots and lots and lots of money for it. And it made its profit back, too. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about, it was mentioned here, the cast. We do have a very interesting cast. Frances McDormand's name has already been mentioned. I thought she was actually really fantastic in it. But Liam Neeson as our Darkman. It was really weird not seeing a young Liam Neeson. Seeing a young Liam Neeson try to restrain his very familiar voice. Did anybody else notice that? Paul, did you notice the voice seemed a bit different on our Mr. Liam Neeson than what we're used to, and I don't think it was just because of age.
No, I think it had to do a lot with him trying to make sure his teeth didn't fall out.
Well, no, but I mean, before that, even when he was just the scientist, it seemed like he was trying to suppress his accent. It was weird.
Well, I think this was his first action type film, so I think he was just kind of discovering that voice that we all know him for.
Sure.
I don't know. I think maybe he was trying to kind of play down his accent a little bit because I'm sure that there were like Universal people saying that, and he was like worried about like a Universal exec saying maybe we can dub him, you know. But he'd been in like supporting roles in action films before. I mean, I didn't know who he was when the movie came out. Mm-hmm. When he got cast as in Schindler's List a few years later, everyone's like, "Hey, who's this unknown?" I'm like, "Unknown? That's motherfucking Darkman." Sorry, man, you're gonna have to bleep this episode a lot, man. Sorry.
Oh, no worries about it.
You know, I think maybe he was just trying to play it down a bit, but I don't think he was really doing it too much. What I got from his voice actually wasn't so much in a tense turn to like play down his voice as much. It was to kind of and I was going to get into this later, was to recall the like Colin Clive and people from the old Universal monster movies. Because even before he becomes the monster, he kind of talks to himself and is very animated in the science lab and everything like that. And I felt like it was kind of a direct throwback to the old Universal monster movies of the 30s and 40s.
Which is actually a good point, because again, I read up on this, and apparently Sam Raimi wanted to do a monster film in the vein of this. Did I read that right? Anyone else?
He had written a short story that was an homage to the Universal horror films, right. And the movie grew out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that. I just kind of figured it from the way he was like acting and stuff, and like then later on when that you actually get into the actual like more monstrous aspects of Darkman and stuff.
He's got the wraps on him like the Invisible Man, reminded me a bit of good old you know.
I saw Invisible Man, Phantom of the Opera. Going a little further beyond Universal, I saw the original House. Well, not the original, but the Vincent Price version of House of Wax.
Sure.
You know, I saw a bit of that and all that stuff there.
Yeah, there were a lot of influences in there. Don, what'd you think of the superhero himself, the character, the casting of Liam and his design? Anything about that you remember about or that you liked?
Oh, I liked the character. It's just like I said, I'm sorry, like Scott said, it was very reminiscent of familiar classic monsters.
Sure.
And Liam Neeson is extremely charismatic, so it was very easy and believable. And Sam Raimi is an excellent writer, so I definitely liked the character.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, and again, too, the whole world was still coming off of the Batman high from the previous year. So, and this does have some, you know, it's a darker character. He's got a great trench coat. Cole, what'd you think of the design of Darkman and Liam as the Darkman in this?
Well, it's for sure coming off the Batman high. I mean, if you look at the editing and staging of the final sequence, there are shots that are
Hmm.
pretty damn close to the very final shots of Batman. And stylistically, there all throughout the movie there are extreme similarities, but the Batman was playing off of Blade Runner also. So the design as a whole was amazing. I think again, just watching it tonight, I hadn't seen it in a long time, and it all really worked for me. The trench coat and the the practical explosions and the humor and man, the death scene of the hero. Well, the degradation of the hero. I guess they don't
Yeah.
exactly kill him, but we used to really destroy people back in the day. This and Jesus, Peter Weller and RoboCop and even Eric Draven. I mean, we used to just butcher the hell out of our heroes. It's
The
pretty
heroes-
cool stuff. But Liam Neeson is great in this, and
Mhm.
the whole cast is great. The character of Darkman is fantastic. It was so nice to just rewatch this and be impressed with everything. All of the sort of disdain I'd had for maybe some stuff of which I'll probably never see being cut.
Sure.
You just got to let go of that as a viewer and
Mhm.
realize, holy shit. This film probably inspired a lot of what became of my favorite movie, which is The Crow, which I
Mhm.
hadn't thought about until just a couple hours ago. How much Darkman has influenced not only The Crow but Blade and so many
yeah.
movies. What a great flick! And oh man, probably the best action scene of 1990, really, with all those multiple explosions as he's trying to escape them, and then ends up being off the hook. Oh, that stuff is great.
On the helicopter, yeah. We'll get into some of the action scenes and humor in a minute. But Andrew, what about you, sir, with Liam as this role? I mean, while he had supporting roles before in some action films, this is kind of the first time we've seen him in something like this. What'd you think of his performance in him and the character of Darkman?
I liked him, man. I'd seen him in High Spirits. Remember, he's like, "Oh God, what have I done?" So I keep saying that over and over again. Like that was I liked High Spirits. Like
He
as
said,
a
he
kid.
said Bahogies quite a bit in that movie. if I
Yeah,
recall.
I liked him in that. No, it was cool because for once he wasn't one of the guys that's usually an action hero. He was like at least somebody new that we didn't have expectations from. Because when we talk about Total Recall, we're gonna have to talk about the fact that Schwarzenegger, what? He can kick ass? Oh, I wasn't expecting that. So
Yeah.
it's like Jack Nicholson going insane in a hotel. No, really? He went So I
Was it insane?
I
What?
can't put, right? I'm falling out the chair just thinking about it. Shit. So like that was really really great too because he has he has a vulnerability in him. You know what I mean? Like he
Mhm.
seemed sad. Like Darkman seemed sad because he was sitting there thinking like, oh God, the people are gonna think this is racist. The name of this movie because I get burnt up and I'm called Darkman. He had a lot of weight on his shoulders for a production like that. So I was just very, very impressed with him. And you always feel bad for him. He's a tragic hero. And it is more of a monster than superhero. It's like kind of, oh God, what's like something else is kind of like that. Hulk kind of teeters on monster movie and superhero like that too. But Darkman is, I bought it hook, line, sinker. I felt for that guy. I could relate to him.
It was like he took if the Phantom of the Opera decided to do revenge other than just in the opera, like he decided to be a vigilante. It was like Phantom of the Opera vigilante. Yeah, you can see all the influences in here, and I like Liam in it. He is a surprise casting, but he really. And not just him, but the entire cast. Something like this.
Oh God, dude, hold on. I'm
Sure,
sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just had this thought. You know how Darkman, like, you can't really see his mouth move too good?
Yeah.
And a lot of those scenes where he, like, kills somebody or, like, does somebody or creates an elaborate thing that causes the bad guy to die. You would be a great video to overdub Darkman's things that he says. Like when
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like when he puts the hook and destroys the helicopter, you could have somebody just dub in. It's like eat a bag of dicks in hell. To make an actual worth the R rating. Sorry, man, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just had that thought.
No, that's okay.
Friends here, and I can.
But I think
eat every dick in hell.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. But it wasn't just
a million dicks.
I think everybody. What helped make this film work is we do mention the humor, because you do have Raimi's humor in here. I mean, you get this kind of serious action scene, and then he adds some of his humor. But even with the humor and the type of superhero this was in that, did it feel like everyone involved was totally behind this? I mean, in the sense that everybody put in their full effort. It wasn't just this is Sam Raimi, indie film guy. You look at the script. Everybody took this material, I thought, very seriously. Didn't you think that because you can usually tell sometimes when they aren't taking it too seriously, but this one it felt like everybody just went all in with it. If that makes any sense at all, I hope it does. Otherwise, I'm just rambling.
No, you just didn't ask anyone specific, so we're all just
sitting I was getting there. I was getting there.
You gonna call on me?
Glenn, do you think everybody actually went all in on this? I mean, because you know what it's like. You can tell when sometimes a cast isn't behind a film.
No, I think they were definitely all in on this. I mean, Neeson talked about this was a long time ago. Talked about how he liked the challenge of this role, because he spent, it was like 16 to 18 hours a day in all that makeup.
Yeah.
Sure.
Wow.
And a big reason why you don't see his mouth move much is because he worked very hard in trying to not let, because he had to wear false teeth, and he worked very hard trying to not let them move.
Oh.
Because that would obviously, if the teeth are moving around in his mouth, it's not going to look right. But yeah, and I mean, it's also just the number of people that were considered and almost cast for a lot of these roles too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only reason Neeson got this role is because Bill Paxton told him about it. And then Paxton got pissed because Neeson got the role because Paxton wanted it. I mean, it almost ruined their friendship.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think everyone, from what I've read, I read stuff years ago on this when I was doing just a bunch of movie stuff on my old blog, and everyone seemed to just really kind of be into it and really enjoy it. I know Danny Elfman loved working on the film, apparently, because he loved Raimi's visual style.
Right.
And it fit well with his music.
Yeah, it does. I think outside of Tim Burton, Raimi's probably one of the best fits for Elfman's style of music.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack does play a rather impressive part, actually, in this film.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because Elfman had done the soundtrack, to Batman, this big, huge film, and then he's doing the soundtrack to this. That's why I love composers, because composers, it's not really the budget of the film. They'll just do anything just for a chance to do different music, I think. And Elfman's music definitely plays, but with everybody all in, you see Raimi's style in here. Scott, wouldn't you say this is definitely signature Raimi, from the montages to the action scenes?
Absolutely, and I loved that about this movie, is that it was, like everything people have said so far, it was a superhero movie, it was a brooding piece, and as I was talking about before, it is like the old monster things, but it is totally Sam Raimi. And, as I'd mentioned on earlier podcasts that we've done, I used to show like movies to like the kids from the parochial schools and everything.
Yep, you were that kid that corrupted the other kids.
Yeah,
yep.
and that's who I took to this thing. This one kid from the parochial school, and I had shown him, and one of the movies I always showed people was Evil Dead 2. I thought, and if they really like it, then I'll show them the first one, but show them Evil Dead 2 because no one can get bored during Evil Dead 2. so he says, "Oh, that guy, yeah, sure," but he didn't know what to expect because he's like, "Oh, I don't think I've seen any kind of movie like this before. Oh gosh." And he's in the theater there, and we're watching the movie, and he's like whispering to me, "This part's funny. Is it supposed to be funny?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then later on, "This is really sad. Is it supposed to be sad?" "Yeah." And that's the great thing is that you had and all the weird camera angles and the montage and where they would show his anger manifest itself. You'd see like the circus thing, crackle and light up, and then you'd see like fireballs out of nowhere. Cause what the fuck? Throw a fireball in there. And it's just. I loved that he showed his style. I mean, this is why when everybody was on like pins and needles. Back when I think it was like what was it 2002 when his first Spider-Man movie came out.
Yeah.
Oh, is it gonna be good? Is it gonna be good? I had people who saw this movie didn't have a doubt in their mind. Like, no, this is going to be good, guys. This is going to be really good because he's one of those people where the only person who can rein in Sam Raimi is Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
And the only times where he has done a movie that has been more reserved is when he has consciously said, I'm going to do a movie that's a little more reserved. It's going to be a bit more psychological than in your face. And so you have films that are still good. Simple Plan, For Love of the Game,
Sure.
The Gift, But, he's one of those great visionaries. And this was like his first big studio film, his first multi-million-dollar film. And it was even considered low budget by studio standards. But man, this was a guy who had something to prove, and I think he just went all in. Boom, let's do it, and it works. It is total Raimi.
I no time felt like he sacrificed anything in his style in this film. Wouldn't you say, Don? You're a big Raimi fan. Wouldn't you say this is like he had to be so giddy because he pretty much made his style of film, but with a lot more money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You definitely saw that he got to play with things that he had just barely touched on with his earlier work, and he was surprisingly conservative with it because he had a lot of fun with it, and that's obvious. Like Scott had mentioned, the visuals with the crackling and the carnival scene, and some of his other things. But with a bigger budget, he was still more conservative than he could have been because he still like.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to take this serious and be a serious.
This was his shot. He was trying.
This was his shot. He wanted to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it definitely has his signature stuff. For me personally, I
do want to mention something that I thought of as Scott was talking about the Spider-Man thing.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of drew some parallels with Frances McDormand's character, Julie. Number one, she's pretty much the only female character in the movie, which may be part of the reason that I had a little trouble with it. But she was kind of the Mary Jane.
Mm-hmm.
Her whole purpose was to have the bad guy get her in a situation that she needed to be saved from.
Yeah, I did notice that as well. That it was that her character pretty much was the damsel.
But it wasn't that she was weak. It wasn't that she was weak.
No.
Not at all.
No.
She was a strong character, but her purpose was not strong.
Well, it was to be
strong, but the purpose wasn't strong.
It was to be the obsession of the main character because he's wants to marry her in the beginning, and then he obsesses over her after he gets hurt and tries to get back together. And of course, when she's put in danger, then she's the person to save. And also, she's the it's her memo that gets the whole thing intro. So she is, she is
She's
a
Mary
focal
Jane.
point of,
Yeah.
she is a
She's
focal point
Mary
of thing,
Jane.
but she doesn't get to. I agree with you. She does not get to actively participate in the plot. She is merely a placeholder in the plot. And actually, was watching the Blu-ray, the Shout Factory Blu-ray, and I think on the commentary track that I started to listen to, Bill Pope says that Frances McDormand did not want to do the film. Is that she was a last-minute replacement, and she said because they were all friends, the Coen people and the Raimi people were all friends, and she didn't want to do the film. She was a last-minute replacement, and it's not that she was unknown. She had just gotten off an Oscar nomination for Mississippi Burning.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to. She basically agreed to do the film, and they all were talking about how good she did, but she honestly didn't really want to do it. It was a last-minute replacement for somebody else. I don't know who. According to IMDb trivia, Julia Roberts was up for this part.
Whoa.
And then backed out to do Pretty Woman. I don't know if that's true or not, though, because you can kind of have to take some of those trivia things with a grain of salt. So until I hear somebody confirm that, I'm like, nah. But she was a last-minute replacement for somebody. I know that.
And we also get a great villain in here, played by Larry Drake. And I want to talk about the villain for a minute, because he was definitely kind of your basic organized crime guy, but he had a little bit of a few quirks to him. Cole, what did you think of Larry Drake's Robert Durant?
I love it. I love that performance. And I especially love when he's playing opposite himself, when Darkman is under his skin. And we get a couple of those shots where Larry Drake is acting opposite Larry Drake. But I also want to mention again, a lot of Larry Drake scenes were cut. I'm not sure how many or to what extent. Apparently, there was a scene where he was dancing naked on a bed around.
Oh, man,
Again,
that's not on the Blu-ray.
All I am doing is quoting what I heard Bruce Campbell say. That's all I am doing. This does not come from the internet. This comes from very fond memories of myself. But I tend to believe it, because you can kind of see it in the film, that there might have been more manic shit there with his character. But I'm going to leave that aside and just say the way it is on screen in the finished film is amazing. Larry Drake is great. That opening scene with the wooden leg that is the machine gun is fantastic. And the entrance of the villains into Darkman's lab is fucking amazing. I mean, that scene is really good stuff. And then when they kill his assistant, that shot of Liam Neeson and Liam Neeson's emotions, I mean, all that stuff is so good. And then the blast that sends him just flying outward. Oh, man. An amazing. I'm sorry, Mark. What did you just ask me about?
It was about Larry Drake's character.
Oh, yeah, Larry Drake's character. Phenomenal. He got killed off too soon, I thought, even though his death scene is spectacular.
You can watch part 2 if you want more of him.
Part 3, I think, was it? Or was he in 2 as well?
He was in part 2. I think Jeff Fahey was in part 3.
Oh, that's right. Okay. No.
The character. I love the opening with the cigar cutter, and all that stuff is so morbid and creepy and good.
Yeah, you can tell it does lead more towards a more twisted bad guy, though. I mean, he does have the collection of fingers, which he cut off with a cigar cutter.
Yeah.
Which that was just brutal. Giving him that his shtick, if you will. So I can totally see a scene where he would be dancing around naked on a bed. That I could definitely see that.
With all the fingers up his butt.
Jeez, like a
Wow.
peacock.
Whoa, we went there, folks. All
Yeah.
right.
Well, Larry Drake. I mean, let's remember now. I know that I'm probably like one of the few here who has not seen that Dark Knight of the Scarecrow,
Right.
which is like a classic TV movie that he was in. But he was known primarily at the time of this movie. He was known primarily for playing a mentally impaired character on L.A. Law. And if you see that, that character. He plays it, with, it's very a lot of compassion and everything, and really good. And apparently Sam didn't even see that, but he cast him in this role. And Larry Drake, I remember interviews at the time, he just relished it. He said, because I was as bad as they would let me be. He was this great, mob kingpin enforcer character with an obvious military background.
Yeah.
Which is how I think he got the whole trophy idea. You can see him like collecting that like in, wherever. And it's just, and he just let him be they just let him be as bad as he wanted to be, and he was, fantastic in that role as Durant,
And he actually was in the unaired TV pilot they tried to push 2 years later.
Yeah, I have that somewhere around here, burned to a DVD, and I never have watched it. So.
Yeah, that didn't go over very well, but you can tell Larry Drake, and he go on later on to play Mr. Dr. Giggles, which
Dr. Giggles.
Oh, vomit, fuck.
Maybe we'll have to do a podcast sometimes on Dr. Giggles just to get that reaction again.
Oh yeah, I'll be on that podcast if we could schedule it for the 5th of Neverwary.
Nice. But Larry Drake definitely makes an interesting character. He's a good villain to opposite our Darkman because he's even more twisted. Paul, what did you think of Larry Drake?
I've always thought he was a scary man ever since the Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. So he played this role fantastically. I really do like the idea that they gave him something that you can remember his character with. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite lines in this film comes from him, where he basically says, "I have 7 more points."
Oh yes,
yes.
Amazing line.
Oh, that scene was great. He cuts off the 3 fingers. Oh, I've got 7 more points. It's like, oh man, this guy is just brutal.
And then to see the reaction on the other guy's face, who is, he's this big like mob boss or something like that, and just to watch him go. Was amazing. It was amazing.
And special effects in here I thought were really well done. The makeup effects, as we've mentioned before on Darkman, looked, I thought, fantastic. But we actually had quite a bit of kind of computer graphics in here, didn't we, Andrew? For a film like this, it surprised me how much, the holograms in that we had. Is that a little surprising, just how much effects like that we had in here?
I mean, it's just it's everything's in here, man. It's got all kinds of stuff. It's a really I hadn't seen it in a long time, and then of course I get the Blu-ray Scott was talking about, and I'm watching it going like it's a real kitchen sink thing in terms of effects, and that was kind of an exclusively 80s thing, because you're talking about 1990, just a couple of years away from the introduction of CG when they were starting to do that stuff. So it was still kind of in that awesome Renaissance side. I think the effects were Tony Gardner's Alterian studio. I don't remember, but I know he was one of the heroes in Fangoria to Fangoria readers. If you're old and were a geek back then for this stuff, which I think Scott gave me a knowing laugh, so that means that we would have been.
Yeah, we would have gotten there. Yeah.
But there's a lot of scenes there where you can't exactly. I still, looking at it, wouldn't be able to tell you for sure what all was used, because there's rear projection, green screen, all this stuff, and the close up of the lighter and all that stuff. So it's like. Really Sam Raimi, anybody who was a fan of his movies, and we talked about this, just knew him for being pretty gonzo with the camera. Mm-hmm. But the comic book, that comic book genre for him, you could tell us what he was born to really do. And I know he always talked about being a big fan of Three Stooges, but I know he was also a big Spider-Man guy. I know that was a big deal for him. So really, like, it's funny that he's a hero to horror guys because he's just not a, you know what I mean? This is more his thing.
Yeah, those superheroes definitely seem to fit his style, and and again, this was just when people. I think the Darkman struck at the right time too, because and it made a substantial amount because someone said, "Oh, we could do a superhero movie other than Superman. Look at Batman, and it's dark, and now we have this other one," and everybody was starting to get a little hungry for comic book films to the point now where we're obese on comic book films, but back then it was a thin market, and so I love this film, and getting to watch it again, I loved the humor. I mean, you get an action scene in here that's pretty serious of him battling it out with Larry Drake, Durant on the helicopter, and he's hanging, and he's being swung around, and then we get this kind of comedic thing where he's being pulled through traffic.
It's hilarious, dude. It's a very Evil Dead moment.
It was
many.
Oh God, that one scene.
Which
where
was,
Ted Raimi is, where Darkman has Ted Raimi's character poked up through the manhole. I love that scene. Oh my gosh, that's probably my favorite sequence through the whole movie. I'm sorry.
Well, it was shot well too, because we opened it with, they started with him hanging Ted Raimi's character over this really deep tunnel, and he's holding him, and it's like, oh man, and then he sticks his head out the that was just right there. That was some signature Raimi, along with the montage of the floating things going past as he was working on the skin. If you remember that scene where he's starting to try to improve the skin, and you get the Danny Elfman music, which really he was in that Nightbreed vein. You could tell it was in that period. He had very similar music going on, but you had all that beakers flying by and just wild imagery in this that was all Raimi. I mean, this is basically they went to an independent horror guy, go, hey, here's millions of dollars, make your movie, and that's the feeling that I got with this as well. So we'll wrap it up on Darkman here. It is an interesting film. If you're a Liam Neeson fan, you should check it out. If you're a Sam Raimi fan, you want to see the early sprouts of the superhero craze, and even then it didn't quite take off yet, even after Batman and this, but the inklings, and I can see a lot of influences in your comic book films nowadays from these early superhero films.
I did want to ask if I could. I wanted to ask
Sure,
Paul a question, if that's all right with everybody.
No, go ahead, by all means.
Because I know, Paul, you're a big fan of superhero movies and all of that. I just wanted to get your opinion on Darkman. If a superhero movie was made in the style of that one, in today's superhero landscape, where everything seems to be slowly falling into a template, and people are happy about this, for them all to look the same and be made the same and all linked together. Do you think the reviews of Darkman would be like? Do you think people would reject it, hate it, or how do you think it would go over now?
I think it would depend. If it came out just right now, I'm pretty certain everyone will hate it, because they'll say, "Oh, this is not cool. There's nothing original about it." If it came out like now, but if it came out in the middle of the craze, I think everyone would be like loving it. And when it did come out, people didn't know about it, and then they respect it. Like, I respect this movie a lot better now, watching it as an adult, than I did when I was watching it as a kid. So.
Sweet. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Paul. I was thinking, like, before. I just wanted to know what you thought before we moved on.
Yeah, well, it's
Thank you.
With Raimi's style, I can definitely see that it would not probably sit well with your average comic book film audience. Those of us who like Mad Max Fury Road, on the other hand, I would totally dig this now, because we need, I think, a different superhero film, because they are, as Andrew mentioned, seem to be falling into a template. By the way, just to let everybody know, rumor has it there's an Ant-Man film coming out. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's heard that.
I was thinking about mentioning that.
Yeah, but it's nice for a female character because you don't want Uncle Man, you know. Get more female. Oh wait, it's like shit. We lose again.
I really want, like, after Ant-Man, and I'm hoping it becomes a big success, so that movies after that will say from the film studio that brought you Ant-Man, because I'm getting tired of them not mentioning it by itself. It's
I mean, even the movie posters have other
other Avengers that are even not in the film.
What were you going to say, Don?
I was going to say, they do have Ant-Man, and then they have the Man from U.N.C.L.E., so...
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
It does go there, whether they want it to or not.
We need Darkwing Duck, the reboot. That's
yeah.
the terror that quacks in the night.
I actually wonder, like, if they did release something like this now, the Darkman, and Darkman for me actually kind of confirmed something that I said about Batman the year before. When Batman came out, I said if that was an original character and there was no Batman before it, that movie would have been R. And I think Darkman almost kind of proved it because it was just a little more gore and it was R. I wonder, if it did come out now, because I am starting to hear, even after Age of Ultron.
PG-13 now, though, dude. Do you only think it'd be PG-13 now? Army of Darkness would definitely be PG-13.
Army of Darkness,
Yeah, it would be.
Darkman probably, as long as they eased up on the language.
Yeah,
because you can show somebody get their face ripped off, but once you actually someone say fuck, then everybody like screams and runs for cover.
I thought it was a titty that they run for cover.
Yeah, that too. But like
Don't let it kill you.
It's coming to get you, just like the Woody
The
Allen
nipple
movie.
right in my eyes.
Just like in the Woody Allen movie, man.
Yes, exactly.
What were you going to say, Scott?
I was going to say that, I wonder, I have a feeling that if it came out now, it would do about the same business it did in 1990, which was that it did well. I mean, it didn't light the box office on fire, but it did well, and people still talked about it because back then we had kind of a mini boom of comic book things. Dick Tracy had come out that summer, so I think
Swamp Thing, Return of Swamp. That's my favorite superhero movie.
Oh, it's awesome too. But I love it. But yeah. I think that though, because so many look the same right now, it would become the thing for the cool people to talk about, like the people who love to not say oh man, you saw that Age of Ultron, man. Let me tell you, Darkman, that's the one, man. You gotta see this shit when it comes on Netflix streaming. Oh man, and that's what they're gonna do. I think I mean, I don't want to contradict anybody here. That's just my own opinion of that's how I could kind of see that playing out today.
Sure.
If it happened. And I think that when it was all said and done, it would do as well as it did the first time around, which was pretty good, not great, but you know what? People would still be talking about it 25 years in the future.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely. So, interesting comic book film. Hope you folks check it out. And now we move on to another film that had a lot of effects in it. And our hero this time around, well, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall. And here we have a man who goes for a virtual vacation of memories on the planet Mars. An unexpected and harrowing series of events forces him to go to the planet for real. Or does he?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. We have Douglas Quaid, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's a common man married to the lovely Sharon Stone, and then he is told that he's a secret agent guy. He's this really badass guy, and he ends up going to Mars to find out who he really is, and he ends up getting involved in in a political struggle there on Mars. And we see how that unfolds as he takes on the descendant of the bad guy from RoboCop. So, let's talk Total Recall. Now, I know we talked about it before, but I want to talk about it a little more in depth and get some opinions of people who weren't on that podcast. Cole, Total Recall for you. What are your initial thoughts with it when you saw it?
Man, I saw it in the theater and was blown away. I remember the final few moments of the film where they lean in and kiss.
Uh-huh.
I remember very specifically, and how old was I? 1990, so I was 11 or 12. I
Uh-huh.
remember very specifically thinking, "Oh man, don't let him wake up in the chair. Don't let him wake up in the chair at recall." Like I was really invested in this notion of whether or not it's fantasy or not, through the whole thing. And the action scenes are so good. The direction is so good. Um, this is like I didn't do any preparation
Well, that's
tonight
okay.
to talk about Total Recall because I love it so much. I mean, this is a great film. It's a perfect film. Its only weakness might be that it's plays into male fantasies quite a bit, but again, that's right in alignment with the character's mental state. So
Sharon Stone in a male fantasy movie? No.
yeah, no doubt.
Really? No, just kidding.
Word. I love this film. It's a great movie for sure.
Cool. And Dawn, what about you in Total Recall?
I really like this movie. I've seen it. I've seen this movie quite a few times. I've read the source material. Love Philip K. Dick.
No, it did vary.
like.
It did vary quite a bit, correct?
What do you mean?
Did it vary
From the source material?
Yeah.
It was actually the source material was closer to this version than the Colin Farrell version.
Really?
By far.
Yeah, by far.
Yeah.
I and that's part of the reason why I still really like this version over the other one.
Yeah.
At the time, Arnold Schwarzenegger was not at the peak, but definitely his whole thing with the action adventure sci-fi star was definitely on the backslide, rather than the peak. With his doing The Running Man and other King sci-fi movies.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or even just action movies in general. Commando, The Running Man,
Predator.
There, thank you.
Red Heat, Red Sonja, Terminator, Conan movies.
Yep. And this was kind of in the backslide. And Cole's right. This is a huge action fantasy, guy fantasy movie, but it's completely intended to be because. It's about his fantasy. After the first 20 minutes or so, once he sits in that chair at recall, you are not supposed to know. It's completely up to your imagination as to whether it's real or fantasy.
Yes.
And that's how it is supposed to be. Verhoeven intentionally did that. He left it ambiguous so that it would completely be up to the viewer's interpretation.
Yeah, and I think they did a really good job in it outside of that remake. This one definitely keeps you questioning it. I mean, you really are put in the position of Quaid of trying to figure out, wait, is this real? And as you start to see more fantastical things on Mars, you really start to question it.
Yeah.
Glenn, what about you with Total Recall?
Get your butt to Mars. Yeah, when this movie came out, oh my gosh. I remember seeing it in the theater. I remember when it came out on video, and I probably wore that tape out. I watched this one so many times. I did a Star Frontiers RPG game based off of this movie.
Star
Yeah,
Frontiers.
I had maps of like the whole the mines and the whole city and Mars and everything. Oh yeah,
That's so cool.
I love this movie. Now it's I've read the book too, and yeah, Dawn is right. It is closer to the book than the other thing that was made. And it's also a movie where, I mean, the level of violence is way up there, and it's in a lot of ways it's different from a lot of the other violent movies that I had seen up to this point, because like you have other movies where people are shot, there's high body counts, but you don't have scenes like him holding the body on the escalator. And just the whole body getting torn up by bullets and just blah 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 blah, but then he shoots some guys, and then blah, and you didn't see stuff like that for the most part, where there was that much blood shown in an action movie. So that was something that was really cool to me, and I liked that a lot.
Yeah, it gets pretty brutal, but it's Verhoeven, so I mean it doesn't surprise you. I mean, he had just done RoboCop before this was his last film,
Yeah.
so that definitely was in his wheelhouse, if you will, his signature. But there weren't many. No, there weren't many that were like that, and so it definitely stood out among the other action films that went on there. Andrew, what about you with Total Recall?
Oh, let's go back to 1990 in the old journal for a second.
Yes.
I was 13 years old. This journal entry is dated August 22nd, 1990. It's a recap of favorite summer movies. Young Andrew's 3 favorite summer movies were Total Recall, Back to the Future 3, and The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. Those are
Wow.
top
Yes.
favorites. Yeah, man, I was, of course, a big RoboCop fan, being a kid, so, of course, I was really stoked to see Total Recall or anything with the name Paul Verhoeven on it. But, and I remember my whole family went to see it, and then afterward, my poor mom, was just like, I like this story, but why do they have to be so bloody and say so many cuss words? It just ruins the whole thing. And, she's got a point. The only thing more amazing than the films of Paul Verhoeven were the fact that anyone let this guy into America to make movies for us. Because all he is doing in every single one of those things is laughing his ass off at us. And if you've ever listened to the commentary for Total Recall, those scenes that Glenn was talking about, the escalator and all that stuff, the horrible violence, he's laughing his balls off at this stuff and saying, ha ha, when they step on the man's face, that shot was just for me. Ha 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 ha. I mean, it's just like you can't believe it. I can't believe this. His movies kept being hits, and when they stopped being hits, he was out of here. But man, for these things, God, it's so he puts there's in both RoboCop and Total Recall there's a scene where someone's jugular is just punctured. You know what I mean? And just
Yeah.
And dude was just like, yeah. He was
You
bananas, this guy.
must more blood coming out of neck.
Oh
We need
God,
more
yeah. I mean,
blood.
just think about it, because essentially, Total Recall, RoboCop, a lot of these things, they're children's stories. Unlike Raimi with Darkman, where he was making what I consider harmless, fun movies that get rated R, Verhoeven shouldn't have been allowed to do this stuff. I mean, like, somebody would have said, "Now wait a minute, dude." The jugular in this thing, we're in space. This is freaking. What are you doing, man? This what? It's the same thing with RoboCop. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna make action figures out of this, but before we do, blow his hands off. You know what I mean? Like, looking back on it, you go, this is just. I mean, to me, that's the legacy of Verhoeven and his work in the United States. It's just, can you believe they let this guy? He's fucking with us. He's fucking with everything. He's just a maniac. That's my opinion on him.
He definitely had that impression from him that he was just, oh, you give me some money, I'm gonna make some really over-the-top action.
Yeah, and also putting a brown woman in one of the leading roles, the leading romantic role.
Yes.
Thank you, Paul. That was one of the craziest things you ever did, buddy.
Probably had the studio execs in a room, and he just started going, "Open your mind."
Yeah, because before this, Rachel Ticotin was the love interest in A Critical Condition with Richard Pryor.
Yeah,
So
she was.
she made this jump for a little while. And I mean, she was in like Falling Down, remember? Turbulence, Con Air. She was in some like action movie lady for a little bit, and that's just name your top around action movie lady. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah, she was in a lot of things for a while,
and she was not the damsel in distress.
no,
Oh,
she
definitely
could
not.
she could hold her own in this one, especially, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Paul, your feeling with this film?
This actually, I think I did get to see in the theaters, which I'm pretty happy that I was able to do. When I was a lot younger, I was very riveted by the various types of eye candy. Well, the action and the special effects included in that, of course. And as I grew older again and rewatching this film, again I started to look at the deeper things of the movie, and I really, really liked basically that mental head trip that this movie gives. And I really do like this version over the new version because this gave me the ending that I wanted. It didn't actually force an ending that I didn't want. So
Sure.
They didn't even go to Mars in that one, right? They didn't go to Mars in the new one.
Correct.
No, they didn't.
No,
It was. They had like some kind of, if I recall, it was like a passage through the center of the Earth.
But ain't Mars
Yes.
like the whole most important thing?
In the story, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
it's
weird. Let's like making Star Wars and going. Let's not have wars or Star. Choose one. We can't.
Yeah, yeah. The remake
I
definitely.
don't want to get into that, but I remember going like there was something weird about it when we went to see it. Because of course I forgot about it because that's
Sure.
the point. But like, yeah, no Mars, man. Get your ass to wait. What? No.
where
Get your ass to
the highway,
the
because
highway.
a lot of the action.
4th and 35th.
When you hear the crunch, you're eating chips.
Mr. Davis, Total Recall.
I loved it. I did not get to see it in the theater because, like I said, it was hard to find people that were cool enough to take you to an R-rated movie
Sure.
in my neighborhood at that time. And I remember my brother coming back from the movie and going, "Oh man, you gotta see this movie! It's so wild. There's like violence and roar." And he's like talking about the movie and stuff, and he's saying like, "Dude, and you never know, man. Is it in his head? Is it not in his head? I mean, it's like, whoa, play with my head." Did I mention that he was really into the Grateful Dead? Anyway.
Why didn't he take you, Scott? Is that too personal of a question?
Yeah, and I said, "Jeff, let's go see it." Like, fuck you. I'm like, oh, he's a big brother. It was a while before we really got along.
God,
I
dude.
love him now. He's a good guy. I want to say that for the record. I love him now. But yeah, we had our issues. But anyway, he yeah, so I was like, I waited so I finally saw it on VHS, and I just loved it. I thought it was a great movie. It is like the successor to. It's basically combining as bombastic as James Cameron was starting to get with as extreme as Paul Verhoeven was starting to get, and you have the common denominator among those, which is Schwarzenegger, who was. He was at his peak, I think, at this point, because this was going into the 90s. I think his next movie after this. His next movie after this was Kindergarten Cop. But
before this, he did Twins. So.
Yeah,
And your point.
But no, his action. I like actually. No, I like both Twins and Kindergarten Cop a lot, actually. And you have this great guy, and he did these movies, and it was the next thing I think was next summer was Terminator 2, which was like I think his zenith. Like that was that was as big as he ever got, and he was like the king of the box office. He was great. I love everything about this movie except as much as I love Arnold Schwarzenegger, as I do always have an issue that he at the beginning of the movie he's just an average construction worker. Arnold Schwarzenegger has never been an average anything since he lifted his first weight, okay? This guy, he's a guy who, it's like the Bill Burr concert. He can barely speak English, so what does he do? He becomes Mr. Austria, Mr. Universe, Mr. World, like all these things. He comes to the country. No one can barely speak English. No one can pronounce his name. Becomes the biggest motion picture star in the entire universe. This guy was, I mean, he was Superman. I mean, it was so out of the ordinary that the only thing I have against the movie, as much as I like Arnold Schwarzenegger and I love seeing him kick ass in this movie, is that it's hard for me to believe that he could ever pass as a normal human being. So, a lot of his best films in my idea has been films that played on his bigger than life image. The first Conan movie, The Terminator, Commando even did it because that was like a big comic book. Twins and Kindergarten Cop both talked about him being like this like pumped up Superman when put him in weird situations. And then you'd have like a film like Junior, like yes, he's a scientist. Like no, he's not. He's not a scientist. No, he's a guy trying to get a present for his kid. He's just an ordinary guy. Like he is not an ordinary guy. This guy is not ordinary. And it's weird because now I find myself like going back on this year because he's in one of the year's best movies so far, Maggie.
Yes.
Which I think it's a great movie, and I think that he's not Superman for once, and because he's getting older and everything, that it actually now works. But at the time, it was hard for me to believe that he could ever be an ordinary anything.
So who would you have picked for Quaid? Like, who would be your ideal Quaid?
I don't know. See, if they had a Colin Farrell type at the time to put it in there, that would be nice. But
Bruce Willis.
No, not fucking Bruce Willis either. Nope.
How about Liam Neeson as Quaid?
Yeah.
Liam Neeson would have worked as Quaid.
You know who originally was going to play Quaid?
Who's that, Glenn?
Patrick Swayze.
That's right. I remember hearing
that's
about
when
that.
Dino De Laurentiis was making it.
Yeah, he would have been a. Oh, there's that whole. Oh God, there's some great on Alien, right? There's Dan O'Bannon talks about their plans for Total Recall. He and Ron Shusett, right? Am I remembering this right?
Yeah. They wanted to do it, but they realized that they would never be able to make it with any kind of realistic budget.
Yeah.
Because of the effects they would need. So, and they decided to work on a different project instead that they had an idea for, and that became.
I just had Total Recall from a bonus feature.
I remember seeing this in the theater. Going to see it, and I thought it was a blast. I'm like, yes, because I loved RoboCop. So I'm just like, this is awesome. And at the age that I was at, I'm going to say it, Dawn, I do apologize. She's got 3 boobs. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Why would 3 boobs offend Dawn? There's something we don't know.
Totally wouldn't. I always tried to wonder how the hell they did that with a prosthetic.
Back then,
Certainly,
that was
trying to figure out how that would possibly be comfortable.
Baby,
they probably strap everything down and build the whole thing out. It's what Linnea Quigley in Night of the Demons. That's how Steve Johnson did the nipple lipstick scene. They just bound her down and then they she's wearing a total.
You really have to be small enough to do that, though.
Yeah, that
might have been part of the
casting
for the role.
Very true.
Arnold, I will agree though. Arnold, he's sitting there going, "What do you mean I'm not a common man?" I'm like, dude, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. It's
not his fault either. I mean,
I'm not saying
he's a victim of his own achievement in that in that sense, and that's so whenever they would try to put him in like a everyman role, I'm like, you're not an everyman. I would still love all these movies. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love Running Man and all that other shit, but I mean. And I love this movie, but I mean, it was just like that one thing that's like, yeah, not really. This guy should have been a nerd in an office. He shouldn't have even been on a construction site. He should have been some office drone, which I have not read the original book, but I believe that's what it's supposed to kind of be, from what I heard, or no?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's supposed to be some sort of office drone, some sort of accountant-looking fellow.
Kind of like Neo from Matrix or whatever.
Neo.
So I mean, like, that's like who she should have been. I mean, when the remake came out, they kind of tried to do that. The problem is that the remake came out and it was a remake of a film we had already seen. We were like, you know what? that's the film itself was not that bad, the remake. But we've seen it, guys. You had your shot. You had your shot. We saw it. In order to make this movie, you have to make it different, and you didn't make it different enough. So
Yeah.
that's why. So
It's
that's
too
why
big of
that
a
one-
hit, like in
That's why it didn't work.
But Arnold definitely got into this, man, I've got to cut that word out of my vocabulary. I use definitely way too much. Anyway, but Arnold.
I love being on Rain Man's podcast. I mean, I think it's great. It's like definitely
Hauser. Definitely Hauser.
Yeah.
Definitely Hauser. Oh yeah, Dennis Quaid.
You do that pretty good, man.
Thank you. But I did like.
Now do Pootie Tang. No, Pootie Tang is Rain Man. No, wait.
He had a great cast around him, though. I mean, Michael Ironside actually is the foot soldier bad guy to the main bad guy, who, as I mentioned before, could have been a relative to the bad guy in RoboCop, because this does take place in the future. We've got Ronnie Cox back playing a villain, big surprise, and Michael Ironside playing Richter, who I liked the Richter character because he was not dumb. I mean, he wasn't exactly maybe the most efficient, but wouldn't you say, Glenn, that Richter wasn't exactly a dumb villain, though? Because, I mean, he figures things out pretty quickly, as Quaid's trying to elude him.
Well, yeah. He figures stuff out pretty fast. I mean, he's definitely on the ball. The problem is that his boss did not fill him in on all the shit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, most of the mistakes he makes is because he's doing his job the way he's supposed to be doing it, but he wasn't told by his boss that you don't do your job the way you normally do it because there's something you don't know.
Exactly.
He was a memorable villain, and Ronnie Cox too. I mean, he's one of those actors that it's like, I need a villain. I need an older villain. Who can I cast? Hey, Ronnie Cox. Just like the other guy who got casted, the principal from Breakfast Club. How he got always cast in those a-hole roles too. But Cole, what'd you think of Richter and Vilos Kohagen, played by Ronnie Cox? What'd you think of our two villains in this film?
Terrific. I love their scenes together. I love Ronnie Cox from Beverly Hills Cop, which
yes,
probably it was my favorite film for a long time. I love that movie, and I love him in it. But both of them are great in their scenes together, and then that little moment where they decide to kill him
yeah,
while he's getting the implant, which is humorous. But I like those guys.
Mm-hmm. They were definitely decent villains. Dawn, what'd you think of our two villains?
Michael Ironside is perfect.
Yes, he is.
I don't think I've ever seen anything that he's been in that I haven't enjoyed his performance. From God, how badly am I going to date myself here? From when he was in the TV series V.
Yes.
Visiting hours.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Scanners.
Yep, Scanners. Man.
Who's that detective in the wheelchair? I mean, no.
His voice acting in Heavy Metal 2000.
Yes. In Prom Night 2 he was in.
I'm going to give you another one, the one that I love, of course, Space Hunter.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God! I'm looking at the VHS for that right now.
Over Dog McNabb, he was awesome. I mean, you said if I made it to the maze, I could go free. I lied. Nobody goes free. I freaking loved him in that.
Yes, I seriously, I've not seen anything that Michael Ironside has done that he's done badly. So
except for answer Mark's emails.
Except for yeah.
Well, in his
Would've
defense, I think the
Yeah.
website was broken, but that's okay.
Aw.
It's no problem. But yes, I agree with you. Michael Ironside really could do no wrong. And later on, when Starship Troopers came about, and I got to see him again in there, I'm like, yes, this man's great. And he was the best part of when they tried to keep Sequest alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He really was. He's definitely one of those. Definitely. He's one of those actors that was one of my favorites. Still is one of my favorite actors. I always get kind of a smile on my face when I see him, and I agree. His scenes with Ronnie Cox were really memorable. Those two played off each other well. And speaking of villains, we do have a villainess in here. Now, this is before her famous scene of Basic Instinct. We have one Miss Sharon Stone in here playing his wife in kind of an action role. Paul, did that surprise you to see? I mean, knowing now, because we've seen her in Basic Instinct, but seeing her in a role like this, is that a bit surprising?
When I first saw it, yes, but
Mhm.
since then it doesn't surprise me.
Mhm.
And I thought she did a fantastic job. The first time I think I saw her was in the Adventures of Alan Quartermain. I think was.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
King Solomon's Mine.
Which
yeah.
we did an episode of. You can look that up right there on the iTunes. But anyway,
Get it now. But yeah, I mean, and she wasn't a character that was like, just there. I mean, she played a pivotal part, and as much as we liked Richter, I liked her character just as much as I liked his character, because of the fact that, you see Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he was this big, kind of intimidating guy, but I think she was able to put him in his place too.
well, and then there's a little more layer to her as well, which I really liked in all this, in this film where you could have just gotten characters that were pretty flat. Everybody from Richter to Cohagen to even her character, which is a minor character. You have a layer in that you get that great conversation she has when she comes, when the goods are out and it's given that he is, she's not his wife. You get that interesting scene by the bar and some dialogue there that we get actually a little bit to know her character more than just, oh, she was on assignment. I mean, she does the thing about, you want to tie me up, and how do you know I don't like it? I mean, it was just little things like that, and I loved the fight between her and Rachel Tickerton. Thank you. What'd you think of that fight, Glenn, between these two?
I loved it. Well, I loved it, but then I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. It was. I'm glad it turned out the way it did, because at some point it's like, as good a fighter as she is, he's a giant guy.
Yeah.
And he really just needs to land a hit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was well choreographed, which is what really played it, because when you're having two people square off, even though at that point he's just the average destruction worker, a lot of times in movies when people square off like this and you have this giant difference in size, they don't do anything other than just have a typical knockdown drag out fight, and some other smaller person stands toe to toe with the bigger person. And this one, she does things where she uses her environment.
Right.
And that I like when they do that, because in truth, if she just stood there and tried to go punch for punch with him, she's gonna hit him once, he's gonna hit her once, and then she's gonna explode.
But she held her own too, though, in that cat fight. Basically, sorry for lack of a better term, the conflict she has with Rachel, those two really go at it.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I'm in no way saying she's not a good fighter. I think she's a great fighter, but I mean, there's an obvious size difference.
Well, yeah,
between her and Arnold,
yeah.
And she knows how to go about utilizing what skill she has and the environment she's in to kind of downplay his advantage. physically.
Right. And that fight that the two ladies have, though, I want to ask Andrew, wouldn't you say that was actually a bit unusual for an action film of that time for that type of scene? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's so cool. Like it's right out of Sirio Santiago, except for nobody was topless. What I'm trying to remember now, because I haven't seen it so long, is there a vagina punch?
Yes.
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 Okay. I was like, I somehow started to remember. Most of what I remember is Sharon Stone's quite sweaty, and that was
in that workout outfit.
pretty awesome. But yeah, I was just like, as we're talking, I'm sitting here thinking, it's a vagina punch, right?
Yeah, Rachel gives one to Sharon, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why that part was unusual.
I almost said something.
But that stuck out for me.
What, you were thinking pussy punch just because of alliteration?
No, I was actually thinking it's Sharon Stone. It's taken worse.
Oh.
Which is a reference to what exactly?
Yeah.
Oh, come on! Don't put me on the spot, man.
Well, you said it. You brought it up. Moving on. Cole, the fight between the two ladies, wouldn't you say that was a bit unusual? I mean, because these two really go at it, but I mean, for an action film, this kind of surprised me, and it was one of the scenes that always stood out for me was the fight between the two ladies.
Yeah, I mean, for an action film of this size, of this sort of, wide release nature, and everybody went to see it at the time, and it got great reviews. Yeah, it was unusual. It shouldn't have been.
No,
but it was. But that scene kicks ass, Actually, the whole sequence kicks ass, and the fact that two women fight each other right in the middle of it shouldn't stand out, but it really does. But the whole sequence from when that older character comes in and tries to tell Arnold that he's having a hallucination, which he very well may be, shoots the guy in the head, and then the whole thing goes to hell. All that stuff is great.
Yeah.
And
that guy makes a funny face when he shoots him in the head too. He looks like he's it looks like he's whistling before he dies. I'm just remembering weird shit. I'm sorry.
I want to, if you don't mind. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry if I'm like, I don't want to step on anybody here. But I was thinking about this the last time I watched the movie, which was like about a month or two ago, and whether or not this is a fantasy or reality of the Quaid character, it brings up something interesting with the Sharon Stone character, because he finds out that that she's not his wife, and they turn on each other right away, and he kind of turns, and they kind of turn on each other. If assuming that maybe if some of this was in his subconscious and stuff, do you think that there may have been some sort of unsettling subconscious resentment that he felt towards his wife, towards that character? Like, I don't know why. Maybe she doesn't deserve it or anything like that. Depending on whether you believe it's fantasy or reality. But that was like a kind of disturbing thing that I noticed. Like, they kind of turn pretty quickly on this character.
Okay. Exploring that thought further. Ooh, my earphones are making funny noises. Exploring that thought further, the fact that they make Sharon Stone's character as the wife of Richter, is it that she was cheating on him at some point?
Oh.
Possible. Yeah. I just felt like, in order to turn it, even if it was like the subconscious, and there's like a lot of theory and a lot of to suggest that it might be, like they say it, though, like Cole mentioned, it is kept ambiguous. I thought, that's... And at one point he just says, consider that a divorce. Like, geez, was there something going on underneath the surface there? I might be going way too serious for such a actiony movie.
You might be digging a little too deep, but no, I see where you're going with it.
The last time I watched that, I'm like, geez, that's kind of like, it added a dark undercurrent to the story. I thought,
Well,
I didn't see as a kid,
it's interesting that this was actually Cronenberg's project for a long time. And he and the producers had creative differences, and the producers, specifically Stuart Kornfeld of The Fly, offered him $1 million to come and direct The Fly, and Cronenberg left. But I very much still see Cronenberg in this movie. I mean, the body horror thing and some of the weird mutations. I just wonder how much of the idea was developed, like in the mid '80s, until they finally, got this thing out with Verhoeven as the director. I don't know. It's interesting.
Those mutants definitely did have a did have a Cronenberg feel to them.
Well, and both directors have kind of a utilitarian aesthetic in terms of their sets and even the appearances of the actors and stuff like that. There's something really kind of like otherworldly almost, or bizarrely perfect about things, So they do fit together. Their styles fit together, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
But
and
you know what's one thing that I was thinking while you guys were thinking that? Instead of disguising himself as the big woman or whatever, it would have been funny if the people get to Mars and accidentally kill Randy Quaid instead.
That'd make it a whole different movie.
National Lampoon's Martian
Mars
Vacation.
Vacation.
Yeah.
Quaid.
You think this is the real Cousin Eddie?
Quaid.
Bang, bang, shitter's full.
I'm gonna have to skip on the sled, Quaid. They put this
Dennis
implant
Quaid,
in my nose, and if I get hit wrong, the implant's gonna go into my brain, and I just can't go on the sled. Paul, what did you get your thoughts?
You really think it matters more?
No, probably not. Nowadays, anyway. And Paul, how about you with that fight? You kind of made a comment. The remake, they did do a knockdown, drag-out fight, but I thought this fight, especially for the time that it came out, was the ladies didn't pull any punches.
No, exactly. That is definitely it. Even though I do prefer the Kate Beckinsale or whatever her name is.
Yeah, Kate Beckinsale fight. Yeah. Well,
I like
Kate
that
Beckinsale.
character in the remake over Sharon Stone. Believe it or not. But that beside the point. I think that the reason why this fight between the two female leads in this film was so different was that they were actually fighting. They weren't doing the typical fight that you probably expected during a movie of that time period. It was like they were actually throwing kicks, throwing punches. They were fighting dirty, and it was just unbelievably real to me.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody rips the other's clothes off. I didn't
Yeah,
mention
and they
that
kept
before.
their clothes on too.
Well, and Sharon was wearing that nice suit. I thought that was it was a classy type of thing, Prior to that, she was wearing that workout outfit, and now this one, she was actually fighting in a suit, and I thought it looked really cool. It looked like like one of those stylish, like cyberpunk type of outfits for me, anyways.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be a big deal, but like Andrew said, it shouldn't stand out. But I always remember that scene because it was something you had.
I don't
not
think
really...
I'm the one that said that. I was the one that
Or-
kept harping on the vagina punch.
Oh, you were. Yeah, that's right. You were on the
I think
vagina.
that was Cole that said the actual smart thing.
Sorry, no, but yeah, it was something that really should not have been memorable for the reason it was, but it was at that time, and I even after it, you didn't see too much of that between two women fights. So it was a unique thing to have within this action-packed film to have a scene like that, and I think that's what makes it cool. What makes this film cool, and the world building. Let's talk about the world building on this film. Scott, what did you think of this world of Mars that they built, and just in general with the technology in that? I mean, you've got your Verhoeven classic, everything's got a label on it.
Yeah.
Product type thing, but what'd you think of the world they built with the Johnny Cabs and?
I thought it was, and a lot of this I think was a Verhoeven thing too, and you also a bit of maybe still a bit of Dan O'Bannon left over and such, but I always felt that it was really creative. how they did this movie. How they managed to take little, and like Andrew was saying, how he's laughing at us. Everything has the thing. Like, for instance, the John, not only do you have the automatic cab, but he is so goddamn pleasant. He's so pleasant. Just like they probably would do. They would have, like, make this person, just like when you try to pay your bill these days and they try to make the robots that are on the other line sound like they're human. They're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So when I hear the actual person, the robot on the phone go K instead of saying all right, it's just like, or affirmative. I hear K, I'm like, okay. I know you're a freaking robot. Just process the damn bill. Lots of things like that are right on the money as far as being subtle commentary. And, as far as, this is also gets into, like, people, corporations that, take control of, resources, and they hoard the resources for their own profits. Well, I mean, what are people on Mars going to need? They're going to need air. I mean, and if you have somebody that can hoard, now you can actually hoard and process and refine air. And how wealthy are you? Well, then you don't get the good air.
Oh, dude, that dialogue, man, where he's like, the oxygen level's bottoming out. What do you want us to do? Don't do anything. They won't last an hour. Fuck them.
I mean, yeah, it's just like that horrible, like, just that offhanded cruelty of it. That itself, I thought, was a commentary. I thought the world itself was amazing, but I thought what was amazing about it was that everything in that world played into something that you could see actually happening within the context of the story.
Verhoeven thinks a lot of people are assholes in Hollywood. There you go.
And you know what? He's kind of right.
When Kate and I did the Showgirls podcast, I mean, that was one of the things we kept talking about this guy, man. It's just, he talking about Chaw. He really is.
Okay. He's talking about the Hollywood machine.
This is what he thinks. This is not an American making this stuff. We got to remember that.
That's true. It's not. It's from a completely different perspective that he's handling it. Film made in America, not by someone who
and who is also, if I didn't mention before, a maniac. He's a total maniac.
Yes, he is totally crazy too. Glenn, what do you think of the world that was built by Verhoeven in this? Do we get some classic Verhoeven-isms in here?
Oh, absolutely. As I said, I mean, I loved it so much, I built an RPG around it. So.
Sure. That's why I wanted to ask you what you thought this world is. Kind of feasible. I agree with Scott that you could almost see this happening, could you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's if you look at it in some ways, it's not. I mean, it's almost foreshadowing of the power that corporations have now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, corporations were big back in in 1990, but I mean, compared to what they are now, corporations did not wield anywhere near the power they do now.
Mm-hmm.
And figure, I mean, when you get to a place that is as out of reach, as Mars would be, there's a lot of that kind of out of sight, out of mind. I mean, it could be very feasible for a corporation to have that level of control and that level of autonomy, where they can pretty much do anything they want.
Just like in Spaceballs, right?
Yeah, just like in Spaceballs.
Just like. Well, I forget which state it was, but the
Mars has gone from suck to blow.
Or just like he opens the can of air, just like
it was recently actually determined by, I forget which state. The state Supreme Court decided that it is actually illegal for people to have their houses off the grid. So whatever private electric, gas, or sewage, whatever company, it's mandated that people have to live on the grid and be provided those services.
Oh, jeez.
Well, yeah, because if you're sick of the power company, you're like, yeah, I'll just go with that other one.
Nope, not gonna happen. There's one.
And I'm gonna dig into there a little bit deeper. You guys mentioned it, and watching it this last time, I'm like, this is why I love this film so much, because it is so still relevant today. The issues that they address in there. I mean,
Yep.
let's take the whole alien technology that could terraform Mars, and they don't engage it, even though it would help people, because then they wouldn't be able to make a profit on it. Let's parallel that over to the electric car and gas, which was being talked about back then.
Or healthcare, right?
Or healthcare. Or, I mean, you get that theme in here in this film that is 25 years old, and there's still themes in here that apply today. You've got a class thing going on where you've got the corporate guy going, all those lower, because they were all miners and yes, strippers and all of that, but it was the lower class. Let them just suffocate. That's fine. I mean, there are so many themes in this that still apply today. I don't know if that is a plus for the film or a minus to how far society hasn't gone in 25 years.
You're gonna get, do you know how you're gonna get like all the Fox News people against this show?
Well, all you need to
Which
know
I-
to,
which is
to know that they're
fine
gone
with me.
backwards is, when they remade it, they cast a white lady in Rachel Ticotin's part. So
Yes, they did.
obviously we have not only have we not progressed, but we've regressed.
Well, yeah, and we're not on Mars either. We're on Earth. So
Exactly.
there's that whole immigration thing. Okay, now I'm really reaching. Sorry.
And no vagina punch. What is the world coming
Yeah,
to?
vagina punch. How can you? But
Oh.
so there are a lot of things. It's a Verhoeven film, so there are a lot of things
also a
going
drug.
on underneath the surface, and that's why I love his films. On a lot of people knee-jerk reaction, they look at it, ultra violent, but then if you just look just a little bit below that, I agree. He's laughing at American society and
All his
showing
movies are
us
satire. All his American movies are satire.
showing us how ridiculous human nature is, and especially the U.S. in many aspects. So, Total Recall, I think we all really enjoy it. I have to ask Paul really quick because it came up here. He messaged me, and I have to know. Tell me, why should Quaid be lobotomized?
There's several points in the film, and I could rattle them off if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I want to hear this.
All right. I'll just try to be quick about it though. A section, basically you've got characters that pretty much already know what's going to happen to Quaid throughout the movie. You can see this. You've got the Bob character, and he says that you're basically going to get the girl, kill the bad guys, and save the entire planet, which pretty much happens. So you almost think that it's planned. You've got the Ernie character who basically says that the basically Mars is going to have blue skies. That actually did happen. You even have the Doctor who essentially says, okay, things are going to happen, and those things right after he kills the Doctor, all those things happen in order. Then you also have another thing that Bob says, and he talks about how bad vacations, you lose your luggage, you have lousy weather, and you have crooked taxi drivers. Well, all those things happen to Doug too, which is kind of interesting. There's also a scene in there that flashes where when he's talking about his ideal woman, Melina's picture shows up. And it actually shows up like how do they have her picture if
And
if
it's
she's
almost
supposed to be
kind
this.
of a nude scene with her. God, I forgot about that. Thanks, Paul.
And this one is kind of stretching. This is also with the Doctor. There's a scene in there where Quaid is just pulling him into the room, and you see his reflection in the mirror. But then once he's actually talking to the Doctor, from that point on, the Doctor is saying, "I'm not real. This is all you're stuck in a chair, right?" And you don't actually see him from that point on. You see his reflection getting thrown in the mirror. You'll see his reflection, and then he's out of, because of the way the mirror is positioned, you don't see the Doctor's reflection anymore, and so you kind of think, well, maybe he isn't real at that point. And because of what the Doctor said, the way the things happen, I really do. That's the ending that I want. I wanted it to be that
He
this
was a
wasn't
vegetable.
real. That this was all part of a head trip, and he basically goofed up.
I
Wake up
believe,
in
you know,
bed next to Bob Newhart.
I know that Verhoeven tried to make it ambiguous in the movie.
Mhm.
I think he actually does say in the
Prefers
audio
that ending, doesn't
commentary in the audio commentary what it is. I haven't listened to the audio commentary. I agree. I've always thought that it kind of might be that it's all in his head. The only clue that I can possibly offer to combat that, and it might not even be true, because I mean everybody from like filmmakers to crack.com has said no, it's fantasy. Is that there are scenes that take place without Quaid being present.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I'm like, what if it was a fantasy? What would be the purpose of all this? Wouldn't we just experience it as he's experiencing it?
Unless he's experiencing those parts on his brain as part of his fantasy. I mean, you could dream and not necessarily be in a scene.
It's like reading a book. You don't follow the main character throughout the entire book. Sometimes you got to get the.
Yeah.
But he did sign on to
That's true.
be included in every part as it happens.
Yeah.
And if they have these parts, I mean, you could just argue like, well, it's just exposition. Like, well, there wouldn't be exposition. He would be involved in the exposition. You know, that's the only thing I have to combat it. And honestly,
You need it for the whole stuff.
I know he gives the response, but I still keep
Well,
it up in the air.
that commentary, Scott, have you listened to the commentary?
As I said, I have not listened to it myself,
Okay.
so I
He
cannot
doesn't-
say.
I mean, he kind of does, but I mean, it's very, you know, it's not like he's like this is the way it is or something.
It's not like Ridley Scott where he just said gave a definitive answer on Blade Runner. Pretty much. No, I'm serious.
I don't care what you think of it. This is my vision.
Because I know that after like years of guesswork, Ridley Scott basically gave a definitive answer on Blade Runner, another Philip K. Dick story.
Yes, it is.
So it's not like that, you're saying, Cole?
Not from what I remember, although now that I'm opening my big fat mouth, I'm wondering if what I'm saying is accurate. I have
no. I mean, because I don't know either. You know, all I know is seeing a posting on crack.com, and you never know what people are posting there. It could be
You saw it on the internet. It had to be true.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I can't say. So, like I say, like I don't know. I mean.
Sure.
But like the evidence so I always kind of keep it up for grabs in my head, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, I agree with all of Paul's points, absolutely.
Yeah.
The only thing to play devil's advocate that I can do to combat that is the scenes where he is not present.
Sure.
I still think it's possible.
Point, man. I mean,
Well, I think this is the whole spinning top argument. And yes, folks, if you don't think Total Recall influenced filmmakers later on, check out Inception, and you tell me that ending there is meant to be almost as ambiguous, whereas people watched it forever to try to see if the top varied or stopped or whatnot. This is an equivalent to that.
And again,
folks.
going to the exact same crack.com post, it does not matter if the top spins or not, because that was not his thing. That was not Leonardo DiCaprio's. That was the thing that belonged to his wife.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter.
No, but I'm just saying it's a similar debate. It really is a very familiar debate, and you can see the influences in that. That idea of whether or not it's a dream or not. Especially with Total Recall, and for me, I like to leave it a little ambiguous in that either way, just take it as it is, and it's what you interpret it as. Did you see the top falter or not? Do you see Quaid imagining these other scenes that he wasn't around for or not? It's for you to decide. I just know that he's really got a twisted imagination when it comes to Quado, the oozy little alien.
Yeah, that did come from somewhere.
That was a throwback. Well, maybe he watched Basket Case before he went in for the for the.
Man, my 8th grade science teacher would call her Quado. She was pregnant.
Oh,
Wow.
whoa! And on that note, I think we're gonna close up shop for the evening. Let's roll down the aisle quick, and everybody pimp your stuff. Cole, go ahead, sir.
Well, I just wanted to say thanks for having me on the show. I'm probably the only non-professional movie reviewer, so I kind of just
You're a professional
honored to
filmmaker.
be-
That's better.
sometimes I wonder what the fuck am I doing in a room with you guys. You guys are
Oh,
like,
please.
you guys
No,
are
I think
professionals.
you're
I really am honored.
Paul, man, I love you, man. I think you are awesome.
I'm nowhere near.
Professional.
You guys are like the film critics of that I read. I mean, I tune into your stuff. Anyways, just to cut the love fest short, I'm on Facebook because I'm poor. For, Shadows and Lovers Productions or Horror Roar. But I'm always around, so let's talk movies.
Great art there on Horror Roar, the Facebook group. If you haven't gone there yet, folks,
yeah.
search for it and check it out. Cole does some great posters, some mashup posters, some other great things on there. Really stuff that I wish were real posters for some of those films, Cole. Some of those things you come up with are just mind-blowingly good, man. So good stuff there. So check his stuff out there. And Dawn, go ahead. Where can we find you?
Oh, I'm totally not a professional. I'm just some crazy person that writes a blog about movies sometime. You can find it at intheaudience.net.
Yes, intheaudience.net. Check it out. Some great reads there. She will definitely pick you. And there's definitely, oh yeah, she's got some movies there that I'm sure you haven't heard of, but you should have. And so check it out there. Glenn, sir, where can we find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Naked Hobo Productions, as well as BBB Bunker. You can find me on YouTube, Naked Hobo Productions, and BBB Bunker. You can follow me on Twitter, @Naked Hobo. And other places too, but those are the most important ones.
Those are the most important ones. Check out his reviews and his short films on his channel. Fantastic stuff there. Andrew Shearer, the lovely Andrew Shearer. Please, sir, where can people find your stuff?
Oh man, just want to say thanks for letting me do this stuff. Sometimes I forget to say thank you for letting me come on here, man. I really appreciate it. I really do. And I say some dumb shit, so I really am glad y'all just humor me and stuff. On Amazon On Demand, if you got $2, consider renting one of my feature films, Fake Blood, Mondo Gonzo, Pajama Nightmare, or the latest Underground Cinema with an S. And if you're one of the people that likes to buy DVDs, I always forget this. Yeah, I sell DVDs too. They got bonus features and all this crazy stuff. And those movies that are on Amazon On Demand are not necessarily all available on DVD, and vice versa. I got some special things. Dr. Humpenstein's Erotic Castle. For
I'm actually ordering that.
They have commentaries.
Totally worth it.
They have extra short films. There's one about a butt that's possessed. You know, so gonzorific.com. I'm not asking for a lot of your money. These are like $5, $8 or whatever, and it's all homemade stuff. So can't get it anywhere else, man. Flat out.
Awesome.
I already have the Pajama Nightmare and Underground Cinema DVDs, and they're both awesome, guys. So.
Scott's like the guy that's looking for nipples in Scrooge. You know, you can believe what he says because he's really trying.
He's really looking. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
It's the reason the pause button was invented.
And Paul, where can we find you, sir?
Well, when I'm not spending all of my money at the local Recall affiliate, I can be found at forsakenfilmreviews.wordpress.com.
Awesome, and Mr. Scotty D, go.
Okay, you can catch everything I do at movieocrity.com, kind of a catch-all for all the podcast things, the articles I write, episodes. But I also have a web series called Movieocrity, and I just published it, released, whatever, my first episode in 4 months. You can catch that at vimeo.com/channels/movieocrity. It's an episode on the Empire of Ash quote-unquote trilogy. which is a bunch of post-apocalyptic Meg Max knockoffs. You can't see that on YouTube. It will not be available on YouTube because YouTube sucks. And they said no to a 17-minute video because I have a strike against my account because somebody didn't like to see girls making out in another video I did. So the homophobes. So I urge you to go to vimeo.com/channel/movieocrity and check out the episodes, all 22 episodes that are currently available, including the banned ones of my web series Movieocrity.
Awesome. And you can find links to everybody as well from our website, specialmarkproductions.com, where if you're interested at all, you can find my movie reviews for the final cut, where I do a lot of indie stuff. I've got some more new ones coming up this weekend that I'm posting. Some definitely interesting films. Oh, yeah, definitely. And you can also find a playlist there of the movie reviews I do for We Live Film, where I do 2 horror segments a week. I've got the interviews up there as well as the Spoiler Room archive, and soon there'll be a section for some of my video work that I actually do. It's not movie review related. Right now I'm once again doing the Lonely Trooper vlogs. I've actually got 3 episodes up, 2 episodes in canon and 1 that was inspired by Mr. Shia LaBeouf. I just had to do it.
Do it.
It was a motivational speech by TK422.5. So if you haven't checked that out yet, go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/specialmark, or go to the Special Mark Productions, where you can find all my stuff. Find all of these lovely people's work who have been very kind for this late night to talk about these 2 films. Hope you've been enjoying these 25th anniversary series. We got a lot more great stuff coming in the month of July. And make sure you're tuning into the Spoiler Room. Leave your comments and rate us on iTunes and Stitcher. Go to podcastland.net and vote for us in the movie and TV section, because here in the Spoiler Room, the conversation is fresh, but the movies are definitely spoiled. Hope you enjoyed the ride.